Joining me now, Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor, a former presidential candidate himself. Governor, always a pleasure. We're happy Joe Biden is okay, but I look no further. The timing is something to admire. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal published an article talking about Democrats do expect Joe Biden to run again in 2024, but they're less sure if he should.
Yeah, I think the idea of Joe running, he probably not really thinking about running as much as he is walking. And if the bike accident is any indication, he may want to trade that in for a walker. I mean, a lot of people his age, that's what they're on. And look, I'm glad he's out there riding a bike. I don't think it's that big a deal. People fall no matter how old or how young they are. But I'm more worried about what continues to fall under Biden, and it ain't the bicycle. It's the economy, and he seems oblivious to that. That's what I think has a lot of Americans upset. If he were this age and doing a great job, it'd be different. But he's this age, and the entire country is cratering. That's a concern. And
there's a Wall Street Journal editorial piece called "Breaking the Biden Age Taboo." It was published yesterday, and it goes into how even the New York Times in mid-June, how then the Atlantic, and more Democrats are talking about he's too old. Look at him. And as if we all knew his age when he was running. This has been a problem from day one, but because of COVID, the Democrats were able to keep him in hiding for much of the time and try and they did cover up how his faculties aren't firing the way that they used to.
And that ought to be the big concern. When he tries to go off teleprompter and he just seeks to make a statement, he inevitably jumbles up the words into something that is unrecognizable as English and ends up just mumbling something that nobody can understand. And that's a serious problem. Or when he finishes a press conference and someone like the Easter Bunny doesn't come and grab him by the arm and take him away,
right.
He stares off into space and eventually just wanders off the stage like someone who really needed a director to say, "Cut this way, Mr. President, exit stage left." But that's of real concern because it's something we can see and hear with our own eyes and ears, and nobody can cover that up.
And well, Southerners can, because we just blame it on the way we speak, right? We use it. I'm sorry, you didn't understand what I was saying. I'm speaking a language you don't understand. It's because I'm from the South. Let's just move on from that. It hides a lot of foul ups and a lot of flaws, the way we speak. But in terms of in terms of Joe Biden, if he didn't run, they're going to run Kamala Harris. To quote John McEnroe, you cannot be serious.
What a great line. Yeah, I don't think she's going to be the nominee. I don't think the Democrats will get behind her. It's very apparent that she and Joe have somewhat of a frosty relationship. You don't see them together. And he hands her these assignments that she goes out and bungles, whether it's the southern border or whether it's to go out and deal with the shipping crisis on the Pacific coast. It's pretty apparent she's not ready for prime time. And I don't know what the Democrats are going to do, but they better find somebody in the bullpen that can actually get the ball all the way to home plate. Neither of these people can.
The Wall Street Journal, that article noted that Illinois Governor Pritzker made a weekend trip to New Hampshire. And it was kind of a quiet trip, but that's the second nominating contest, or has been, in the presidential primary. And he gave a keynote address at the state's Democratic Party annual convention on Saturday and went to a little fundraiser on Friday.
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of Democrats sticking their toes in the water, scratching the surface, see what they feel. But I'm convinced that if the Democrats really want to have a chance of putting together a possible, decent, winnable candidate, they better find somebody that didn't lock everything down during COVID, that has a different attitude than the Democrats do on the border and on crime, not prosecuting it primarily and believing in the police rather than defunding them. If they don't have someone that brings their brain to work and instead leaves it on the nightstand, they might as well not show up in 2024.
Because they're all in favor of big spending. And that's how, in part, how we got into this 40-year high inflationary mess that eventually is going to lead to a recession, because that's what it's going to take to fix it. But we'll see. It will require a very different Democrat, as you said. Somebody from Arkansas. But Bill Clinton already has been president for 2 terms. Right.
Yeah, I think it could be his wife who just would love to have one more shot at it. And all I can say as a Republican is, please, Hillary, please be the one who runs. That would be just delicious.
Governor Mike Huckabee. Delicious. Thank you so much. Great to see you, sir. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.